Welcome back, everybody, to These Aren't the Nerds You're Looking For. Lorenzo Fonzin here with
Kevin Horde.
How you doing, man?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. St. Patty's Day today, but more importantly, we've got No Escape Part 2.
The season finale. Yeah, Season 1 of Star Wars Resistance is here upon us. We are closing out this season here. We got some exciting things happening. As always, I'll jump into a full episode summary. So if you have not watched the episode, this is your spoiler alert. I will indeed spoil everything that happens in this episode. Once again, final spoiler alert. Ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. So picking up right at the end of Part 1. That's No Escape Part 1 from last week. We saw Starkiller Base destroying Hosnian Prime. We have a Kaz reaction here as he realizes that his family, his home, they're all gone. They've all been destroyed. Tora rallies him. They do need to continue on as they're kind of surrounded by a bunch of stormtroopers. As they're sneaking around the Colossus, Kaz and Tora find Yeager's and Captain Doza's cell. Kaz informs them both of the destruction that just happened via the Starkiller Base. Tora informs them of the plan to try and get the Colossus flying into the air. Captain Doza expresses some concerns as the Colossus has not flown in 20 years. Niku notes that they need to empty the Colossus of the water that it took on when it sunk into the water. He has a plan to flush out the water and hopefully get the First Order flushed out along with the water. So Kaz and Tora head down, and they split up to distract the First Order into certain chambers of the Colossus to flush them out. Niku has a mild understanding when discussing with Kaz about when to execute this plan, and executes it right now, as Kaz is describing that now is the code word to launch said plan. Regardless, Niku does flush out the water, and with it, the First Order stormtroopers, the plan does indeed work. Tora then has her go at it, dumps out more troopers. These troopers get snagged up by some sea creatures, which is fun to see. We get Niku receiving a transmission from Aunt Z, but then we cut away before we learn anything else. We cut over to Tierney, who is discussing with Pyre the need for backup to help them as they are watching stormtroopers getting flushed out to sea. Tierney discusses that she will take Tam off-world for her safety. Yeager and Doza are hiding in the room, and they overhear. They re-enter this office. Everybody was in Captain Doza's office, but Pyre and Tierney and Tam and the rest of the stormtroopers get out of there. Yeager and Doza then head on in, and they are in there to try and help the Colossus get airborne. As I mentioned, Yeager overheard Tierney trying to take Tam off-world and therefore informs Kaz. Kaz agrees to meet them all at the tower to try and stop Tam from getting off-world. Kaz does, in fact, yell down to Tam right before she's about to board a First Order transport of some sort. They argue back and forth. Tam is talking about how he was lying to her. Kaz admits that he is indeed Resistance. Tam sees through his lies. Yeager joins in. Tam mentions more anger towards lies. And Tam expresses how Yeager was like a father to her, but lies. So Kaz signals to Niku that they need to get the Colossus flying. And as he does, the First Order freak out at what's happening, and a fight breaks out. So we get a nice little gunfight happening on the upper decks here. Tam chooses to go with Tierney onto the transport and leaves with the First Order. Doza frees the Aces out of their jail cells, and they're about to head to their ships, but they are indeed surrounded by TIEs right outside of the docking bay. That is until Aunt Z and Hype Phazon show up and start shooting at them. And so everybody else jumps into their fighters, the Aces, Yeager, Kaz. They all jump in, head on out. We get a nice little dogfight that happens. Von Reg is also involved. Later on, the pirates join in and help Kaz as well. A Star Destroyer then shows up. Kaz calls everybody back into the Colossus so that they can jump to hyperspace. Kaz provides some coordinates to Niku to head to Dakar, which is a resistance base. Von Reg is on Yeager's tail, so Kaz helps out and takes out Von Reg. Von Reg is now dead. And Kaz and Yeager both return to the Colossus. The pirates also made their way onto the Colossus as well. Knowing that everybody's on board, Niku hits the Colossus to enter light speed. Niku regroups with everybody on the docking bay and notes that he did not have time to finish entering the coordinates. So, therefore, Niku does not actually know where they are going and is excited all the same.
He's very excited.
Quite excited about this. So Kaz expresses that, they may not know where they're going, but at least we're all together, most of us. And from there, we cue fanfare.
Cue fanfare.
So, of note, before we move on discussing this episode, it was directed by Saul Ruiz and written by Brandon Allman.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's this episode. Where do you want to start with this?
I mean, we usually jump back to the beginning. I think the first thing I have to note is that, so we begin with Hux's message. So this is like the third time that we've seen this in the Star Wars universe, and each time it's changed just slightly. I think last week we talked about how it syncs up really well with The Force Awakens.
With Force Awakens, yep.
So between last episode and this episode, the slight difference that I saw is that when Hosnian Prime is blown up, Kaz checks with CB-23.
Yeah.
This episode, he's just like, that was Hosnian Prime. That's my home planet. Everybody I know is dead.
Yeah.
And we just jump straight into it.
I wanted to mention that too, because it's really interesting if you're binging this, that they didn't just carry over the same animation and then carry on from there. Because it's even, he has the realization in a different place geographically too. So at the end of the last episode, he's still looking at the monitor when he goes, that was Hosnian Prime.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, he sees it, freaks out, turns around, crouches down behind the box, and goes, that was Hosnian Prime.
Yeah. So I'm not real sure why they do this.
Right.
We have run across this in the Clone Wars with a Cad Bane episode where everybody was on a ship, it comes in and lands, and then people are going in different directions, and there's different people there. I guess it's kind of cool, if you think of it as, how do I want to say this? So if you're viewing this as though somebody is telling you this story, right? So it's after the fact, somebody's telling the story of Kaz on Castellon, right? And they get to the point where Hosnian Prime blows up. He's talking to Torah, and then your kids go to bed for the night, and then the next day you're like, okay, where were we? And you just kind of jump back in and kind of sum up a little bit of what's going on, and then move forward.
It's just weird, though, that in Star Wars, where we all know everybody's a stickler for details, that in 2 episodes that border each other, it's one thing for Clone Wars to kind of fudge that, but in 2019, it's just a really weird, bizarre occurrence to me. And it's not a deal breaker to me. It's still just one of those weird things where
it definitely sticks out.
Definitely, yeah. And again, if you have the animation from the end of last week,
just use it.
I just don't. Yeah, I don't understand the process of not being able to just in a computer format, especially, right? Or even if it was hand drawn. If it's hand drawn, it's you just take the same cells and carry them over.
Right.
But in this one, it's you have the programming all done. Why don't you just keep adding to the end of that program?
And I can totally understand if you want to frame stuff differently, to visually a different perspective, but still,
right.
The actions of the characters and the timing you would expect to line up, and that's not what happens here.
Yeah.
So,
and it's especially in a CG show, because in that case too, because everything's digitally drawn out, you can literally just move a camera to wherever you want. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then it just renders whatever's in front of it, right?
Right.
But otherwise, all the digital puppets and stuff, they've all been laid out, and the animations are done. It's just the rendering of them needs to be done. But yeah, it was definitely something. As soon as it happened, I was like, wait, what? Like, it's only been a week, but I still remember what happened at the end of last week.
Now, do you think this just has to do with the difference in directors? Because last week we had Stuart Lee. This week we have Saul Ruiz.
I can't know. When it comes to television, like, direction isn't as...
It's not the same as feature film direction.
Feature film, yeah.
Right.
It's like the consistency you got on The Office every week, despite different directors coming in and out, right? There's going to be more pressure laid on producers and writers to be consistent, right? Not to downplay the role of direction on television, but it's definitely a director is not coming in to try and leave their mark, per se.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to just make sure that they can tell that little bit of story in a way that serves the previous 19 episodes that preceded it, right?
Right.
Like how weird would it be to like have like a Star Wars episode come, like it's like, oh, this one's directed by Quentin Tarantino, and suddenly we have a lot more black and white footage for no reason,
I mean, isn't this what's going to happen with Star Trek?
Surely, hopefully, if that all goes through.
Yeah, I do not foresee that happening. But we're not here to talk about Star Trek. We're here to talk about Star Wars, right?
Right. So yeah, so that's my note on television production as I understand it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I honestly I've got nothing. It bothers me enough to make note of it and for us to kind of stick with it, but yeah, it's just weird. It's definitely weird. Can I ask you about Niku in this episode?
Yeah, before we get to Niku, I wanted to talk about the opening credits, essentially. We don't really get opening credits, right? But usually we get like the
opening title sequence.
The opening title sequence. So we get the title, we get the fanfare. Last week it was like a more subdued like fanfare, and this week it's just it's gone altogether.
Yeah, so the orchestration that follows whatever Kaz is saying as he's expressing his sadness at the events that just occurred, the orchestration just continues on into the opening title sequence. So I kind of dug it. I
thought it was
honestly
good.
I don't know why they didn't do this before or haven't been doing this every week, honestly.
Yeah.
Because some weeks it's like abrasive when the normal fanfare kind of pops in.
Yep.
So I don't understand if you have orchestration that is happening, why not just work it out to continue on?
And it took me a little bit to figure out what the like the title fanfare was, because so I'm watching this on like Disney Now or whatever their app is, right? And either on my phone or on the computer, and sometimes it would do like the whole fanfare, and sometimes it would play like half of it, and then it cuts to like the Disney commercials that you have to watch for whatever it is. So it took several episodes just to kind of get in the rhythm of knowing what the full fanfare was, and then I do agree that the way that it works these past few episodes is really nice. Like it's not it's just kind of like that title screen is just, it's part of the episode as opposed to like shoving something in there.
Yeah, like a control paste, here you go, like, or a control copy paste.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree.
So what do you got about Niku?
He's extra weird in this episode, I might say. Like he goes back and forth between being very useful and not useful at all, which is really weird to me. So he's like running that control room, which is very good. But this weird interaction he has with Kaz about, now? So you want me to hit the button now? No, now is the word. Yeah, so you just said it again, so I'm going to hit the button now. Like, that was just a step beyond silly to me.
I think we've gotten Niku back to where he was a handful of episodes ago before he, in my opinion, like dropped character and went on this other odd thing because he fit for me this episode. So I think it's pretty fitting that you and I are having the discussion. You're like, I don't know, I don't really like him. Like, he's kind of annoying and like back and forth.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I'm all thumbs up for Niku in this episode. I think his character was played well. I definitely did have a note about like the now joke is what I call it, and it's almost like an Abbott and Costello who's on first thing, except for much more brief.
Not.
And I agree.
Yeah.
But
it's just a weird nonsense moment. Also, like, what is this? This plan plays out a lot differently than I thought.
Okay.
Because there's water trapped in the Colossus somewhere, right?
Yeah, so as you were going through the breakdown of the episode, you brought that up, and I wrote another note, and it just says, why water? Like, why is there water trapped in the Colossus? Because there shouldn't be. Because,
well,
all the hatches were, like, shut down and everything, and except for, like, the few exterior bay doors that Niku opened so that Kaz could get where he was going, like, the corridors and everything should be purged of water. And then
as far as I know, when it was going down, it still took on some water.
Okay.
Right?
And
that was my understanding, and that is my understanding of what they're trying to flush out here.
But that's not what they do. What they do is Kaz and Tora independently and then together find some stormtroopers, basically call to Niku and say, hey, this is where they are. Then he just opens the doors, like the exterior doors, to let water in. Then
is that what happens? Because
that's what he's doing.
When Niku discusses the plan with Kel and Isla and the Shell folk, they mention that they need to flush out water that the Colossus has taken on in order to even out the ballast of the Colossus or something. I forgot how they exactly worded it.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't understand the concept of bringing water back on only to try and push it back out.
Right.
So
do you think that water is just coming from like another corridor that was already full?
That's kind of what I was trying to figure out.
Okay. Because I just assumed that they were like opening an exterior hatch, flooding that corridor, and then doing the same thing that Niku did last week for Kaz, where it was like pressurizing the corridor or whatever, and then forcing all that water back out. So
yeah, it's just based on what Niku says prior to that scene. There's water somewhere in the Colossus, and they're trying to move it through corridors to get it out.
Okay, that makes more sense than the way that I'd read what was going on.
Yeah. But even with that said, like, how are you controlling where the water is going?
By controlling which doors open and which doors close, and what, I guess, Niku can control the pressure in the hallways.
But my point is, like, you have one room that has water, a room in between, and a third room, right? Mm-hmm. You open door one, you essentially just get half amount of water in both rooms. You open third door or second door.
Unless Niku is like, water's in room 1 and needs to go to corridor B. So open the door between room 1 and corridor B, and then simultaneously like flush out room 1 so all of the water goes to corridor B.
But how?
I don't know. However, he's doing the same way that he is like expelling all the water back out into the ocean from the corridor to suck the troopers out. See, whatever that process is, he's doing that in the room to push it. Hey, this was your idea. I thought it was all coming in from the outside, so I have no idea.
Look, I can understand the final room because I feel like that room is meant to, you know, like, oh shit, we have to, like, airlock system, right? Like, we got to pressurize this shit, right? So you get all the water in that room somehow. That makes sense to me. Everything before that room, that's where you lose me, right?
No, I'm with you. That's why I thought all the water was just coming from outside, coming in, and then going back outside.
Nope. In any case, I don't think any of this makes any sense.
I also didn't really understand why Like, I feel like Kaz and Tora should just be identifying where troopers are, and then, like, back off and let the doors close, and then let Niku do his thing, instead of, like...
They were putting themselves in unnecessary danger, shall we say.
They run out... I'm trying to think of... Tora runs out, and she's like, hey, frowny faces, you moof brains, you're a bunch of nerkos, and she's just, like, calling them names. And then...
For what? Yeah.
For a distraction? Question mark? I don't really know.
She's sort of leading them somewhere, but she's not really leading them anywhere where the water wouldn't just have swept them up anyways.
Right. She's just running from the water.
Right. So where they were standing was also in the path of water, so I don't know what was optimal about getting them to a certain spot.
I didn't follow that one either. I got nothing
there.
We do see some troopers eaten by some fish or sea monsters or whatever.
Yeah, and then sea creatures.
Yeah, which is cool because then, like, a later scene, we see an outside shot, and there's one of these sea creatures, like, swimming by, but he just has, like, the trooper's helmet, like, hanging out of his mouth, and that's it. And I was like, oh, that's the fish that ate the trooper. Made me happy. But do you want to talk about Yeager and Doza being released from prison at all? And kind of...
What do you want to mention there?
When, I guess, Yeager's response to Kaz when Kaz tells him what happened with Hosnian Prime, and everybody knows is dead. Yeager, it's like hand on shoulder, trying to console him. I think that, this isn't like a forced thing. I think that Yeager is emotionally involved with Kaz at this point, and it goes beyond just like normal friendship or working relationship, I guess.
Yeah, there's a strong relationship there.
And then at the same time, like, Doza is just kind of like stone-faced, like not surprised.
Right. I don't think Yeager or Doza are surprised at this at all. I feel like they're of an age where they know what the First Order, based on history, is capable of. Right. So I agree. Yeah, Yeager expresses zero surprise, just grief, just equal grief with Kaz.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yep.
So then we do get Niku says he gets a transmission from Aunt Z. We cut away before we even hear what that is. Would you have preferred to witness this communication, or are you okay with the way that it went down the episode?
It's fine. Yeah, like, this is fine. I don't feel like hearing from Aunt Z at that moment would have added anything.
Okay. Because, I mean...
If they need to mention it, yeah.
We do.
What are they gonna say? Like, she's coming back.
So we were definitely wrong in that aspect. We thought we would not be seeing Aunt Z again.
Thought she was gone.
Thought she was gone. I think we probably claimed the same thing for Hype Face On.
Yeah, I put them off together as a pair. So. Yep. How do you feel about Tam's decision? By the way.
We called it, so...
Oh, yeah.
I think that, I mean...
Yeah. I still wish she would have died.
Yeah, personally. It was... I mean, there's always next season.
This is not... I'm not going to lie. Like, watching her character play out the choices she's going to have to make is not something I'm looking forward to, honestly. It's nothing that we haven't seen before in the Star Wars universe. And it's nothing we haven't seen played out a million times across many other shows regarding sides, spies, agents,
right?
Whatever. This is a plot thread we've seen many times. I get that this is maybe for children who potentially might not have seen it before, but all the same...
I liked the way that it played out. She's definitely being led by this Tierney character, right? And the information that she is being given by Agent Tierney is directly, like, the reason that she's being given all this information is because Tierney recognizes some sort of talent in her, perhaps, and, you know, she wants to sell her on the First Order and, like, bring her over to her side. So, unfortunately, Tam is kind of getting lied to all around from everybody, and it's when the people that she did trust start telling her, like, the whole truth that she can't accept it, and, you know, she makes the decision to go with the First Order. I hope that season 2 builds upon this, and we can get rid of the pyres, we can get rid of the Major Von Regs, we can get rid of that stuff, and there can be, like, some maybe more personal Tam comes back to try to root out Kaz or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. I still just don't, in light of what happens in this episode specifically, there's nothing that Tierney really says that I can understand Tam latching onto. I understand the point that when she is told the truth from Kaz and Yeager, that she is not accepting of that. But again, I see that as a flaw in her self-character in terms of she should be able to recognize that in how she's reacting right now is precisely why they didn't want to tell her.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, but she's still, this has all come pretty quickly, and she's still reacting emotionally instead of
logically at all.
Yeah. I don't want to say logically, but
again, it comes back to that one episode where she freaks out when the two children of Tehar show her an unconscious stormtrooper. The first thing she wants to do is turn around and turn themselves in. Again, like, that's exactly why we didn't want to tell you that we were part of the resistance.
I am definitely interested to see where she goes from here. Like, if she's just not in season 2, like, we never see her again, I'll be like, you know, that was kind of whatever. It was a waste. But you know, if it does develop into something else, then good on the show. I'll just put it that way.
We'll see. Yeah, definitely we shall see.
So we do have a lot of dialogue back and forth between kind of everybody at that point, and then Niku fires the engine or whatever you want to call it, right? To get this thing out of the ocean. It is way bigger than I expected it to be.
I agree.
Like, way bigger.
Long. It's long
tall.
from top to bottom. Yeah, it's tall top to bottom.
Yeah. It's kind of like a Star Destroyer, nosed straight down into the mud, and then what would be the aft end of it is the platform.
Yeah. I have to say that based on everything we've seen from underwater stuff previously, I would wager to guess that if we went back to any episode where they go underwater or we see the bottom of the Colossus, that this would not match.
It doesn't. Like, we've seen quote unquote, I'm using air quotes here, maps of the Colossus before, and like before they sunk it, and it had, you know, it was only like the top 20 levels or whatever, and then it had like a flat bottom, and then that would, when they sink it,
that was the bottom,
settle down onto the ocean
bottom platform
floor, essentially.
Or something.
But I totally agree with you. It's whatever. It's a cool looking design when they get it out of the water. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I just don't know why it's necessary to elongate it. If, you know, I got nothing here either.
Because there's no reason.
No, not at all. It's cool seeing it flying around.
It's also interesting to me that everyone is surprised that it's a ship and not just like a platform. Like Doza knows, because he's like,
Doza. He's the only one that's like, hasn't flown in 20 years.
Which leads me to my next point of, so Tora is 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So was she born on the Colossus?
I'm assuming so, yeah.
So where's her mom?
Some freak accident, maybe. Yeah. Sea monsters. First Order, perhaps.
So when I was looking into this, it said that Tor's mom is an ex-rebellion pilot. Have we talked about that before? Did we know that?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, well,
I had no clue.
There's a little detail. And
where's that information coming from?
I have no idea, but I got it from Wikipedia, so it must be true. It's on the internet. But yeah, so there's the rumor that her mom is an ex-rebellion pilot that somehow got with an ex-imperial officer, and they had Torah somewhere along the way, and it says that she grew up on the Colossus, but her mother is unnamed, doesn't say where her home planet is or where she's from. It just says that she grew up on the Colossus. So that's what I got as far as info on that goes. What do we got next? What did you think about CB-23 taking out like all the troopers? So when the Colossus takes off, because the stormtroopers of the First Order have like everybody on the Colossus, all the important figures at gunpoint, right?
Yep.
Or at the end of a blaster, whatever you want to call it. And then Niku fires the thrusters. The Colossus starts to rise out of the ocean, and the two troopers that are by Yeager just straight fall off. Like nobody ever fires a shot, does anything. Like these troopers just fall off, and then Kaz is up on the roof with Torah, and there's like 4 troopers up there that came from somewhere, and CB-23 is with them, and he shoots out she shoots out like 4 different cables and hits all of the troopers, and they're basically like, whoa, I'm a little wobbly, and then she squirts oil or grease or whatever on the ground and kind of pulls them, like gives a little yank on the cables, and all 4 of them fall off at the same time in the same direction.
This whole thing I definitely think is very silly.
Mm-hmm.
It really bothered me that nobody was firing a shot at all for the longest time.
Yeah, there was none.
Yeah, until then Kaz and Pyre start shooting at each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that kicks it off. It bothered me, too, that even when the two troopers came to check on Doza and Yeager in the jail cell, and they didn't shoot them either. When they walk in, I think Torah kicks one of them, and then
I think Kaz jumps on and kicks one.
But then Kaz is holding another at gunpoint, still behind. So I think that's why I think Torah is the one that kicks, because Kaz is like, okay, don't move, or move, but enough to give us your gun.
Yep.
But either way, I'm like, why didn't you just shoot them when they walked in? And then when they leave, Yeager and Doza have the 2 blasters and then turn around and stun them.
Yeah, there's not a lot of out-and-out murder in this show until the very end when Von Reg goes down.
Right.
Which was great. But this is another episode that Von Reg is in and speaks 0 lines, and it's
has
odd.
0 lines.
Right.
Yeah, it's super weird. Doesn't call out a single command. Mm-hmm. Doesn't scream when he gets shot.
Nothing.
It's really weird. I don't know if there was something weird that happened with the voice actor.
I think that they just had an idea for this red trooper, and so they kind of put him into the show. And then, as we've talked about before, that particular character is unnecessary in itself. When you also introduce Pyre, once Pyre came along, Von Reg was had nothing else to do.
Yeah,
right,
definitely.
So you don't need Von Reg to have any dialogue, because Pyre's character is the same guy, just a different color. So I think that's what happened. But I thought it was nice that this season started with Kaz doing some fancy flying and getting a shot off on Von Reg, right?
Mm-hmm.
He hit him. And then Poe's like, wow, nobody's ever hit the red TIE fighter before. Like, good on you. And essentially, hey, he's still alive, but you still hit him, right? You must be one hell of a pilot, yada, yada, yada. That's what jumped Kaz into this whole spy situation to begin with. And then come the end of this season, Yeager, who was supposed to be a badass pilot that survived being a pilot in the rebellion, so he's got to be pretty good, at least at one point in time, is being pursued by the red TIE, and Kaz is the only one that is there that can help him out. And I also thought it was nice that the way that Kaz did it is he had to cut through the Colossus as the Colossus is ascending out of the ocean.
Right.
So this has to take some skill, right? But then he comes up and the timing is right, and he gets his shots off, and Major Von Reg is no more.
Yeah.
So,
I'm glad Von Reg is gone, but it's still awkward that to just even include him in the last few episodes we've seen Von Reg in and not say a single line of dialogue. It's still weird.
It is.
Even if you don't know what to do with this character, just don't have him silently flying around, not doing major things like yelling out orders, commands, whatever.
Major Von Reg things, yeah. What'd you think about the pirates being in this episode?
It was fine. I mean, after the weird little tag we got with them a couple episodes back, it didn't surprise me, obviously. It was there. It was fine.
Yeah, I could have cared less, to be honest.
What's that?
I said I could have cared less whether or not they were there.
Yeah, like I like the idea that they are on the Colossus with them to wherever they go next for season 2.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right. That was really the only goal here with the pirates, was to have them tag along. For what reason, I have no clue.
So do you think Sonara talks some sense into Kragan and crew, or what?
Surely. Yeah, that's probably exactly what happened, where Sonara was like, hey, we need to help them out because the First Order sucks. I think after everything, everybody agrees the First Order sucks except for Tam. Tam's the only one.
Yep. I agree with you there.
Yeah.
I did have another note about the Colossus in general and the propulsion system and the fact, so it has a hyperdrive, that's cool. So it definitely has all these other thrusters and stuff, and they need to get, it said several times, we need to get into space, we need to get off planet before we can engage the hyperdrive. That's totally not what happens. They get past the clouds. Clouds are way closer to the ground than they are to the end of the atmosphere.
Right. But, we start seeing stars and we see edge of, we see curvature of planet. So that much happens. But yeah, we do see there's in the animation, there's a clear line of stars, no stars.
Nah, they jump out of the clouds.
I don't disagree.
I have gone skydiving before. I have been above clouds, outside of a vehicle, right? I was outside of the plane.
Right.
Above the clouds.
I don't disagree.
I was not fucking in outer space.
No, I'm just saying that there's just confusing animation all around.
Fair enough.
Right, because other than clouds, like I said, you can see stars and you can see a lack of atmosphere. Mm-hmm. But there are still clouds. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying it's a mess of animation.
Mm-hmm. Also, why do you think that Niku didn't have time to put the full
that's my actual,
because I feel like it should just be a copy paste, or it's hey, I'm sending you these, and it seemed to take Kaz a third of a second to send them over. So
right, but also the time between Kaz sending them and Niku hitting the button to jump to light speed, there's a couple minutes here.
Right.
It's not it's not a matter of seconds. Because the whole Von Reg thing happens in between.
Right.
So that's what annoys me even more, that Niku comes back and is like, I did not have time to enter all the coordinates. Like hell you didn't.
What else were you doing?
Yeah, like what else were you literally doing? Because Yeager was getting shot at, and then Kaz was saving his life, but you're just down there pressing a few buttons.
Was he working on like the shield system to make sure that they didn't get blown up by the Star Destroyer that shows up on planet?
Dozo was doing. Like,
oh, that's right.
So that was nothing Niku was doing. That is what I do not understand. What the bloody hell was Niku doing?
Yeah.
Like, it's a really good sentiment at the end that they are all together. I like that. I like as a conclusion to season 1. I like that as an ending. I just don't like this weird idea of like, well, we don't know where we're going next.
You know what it kind of made me feel like, though? The end of Thor Ragnarok. It's like everybody on a ship going somewhere, not real sure where.
I guess. But it's...
I totally get your sentiment, though. Like, it's...
Yeah.
There's no reason that they shouldn't be headed to Dakar, and I think that the reason that they're not, I think the reason for this ambiguity is to leave things open in season 2 for them to be wherever the fuck.
Well, yeah, like, to me, this is the exact same reasoning as, for reasons we do not understand, she has lost the will to live. It's we don't actually have season 2 planned, so fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let's just get them out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll figure it out when we regroup at the end of summer.
So,
right?
This probably should have been obvious, but it wasn't to me until I looked it up. But Dakar is in the Ilenium system. So, this base and the base that BB-8 tells Rey about, same place.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I guess
so this is...
It totally should have made sense, but when...
Right.
When Niku is like, Dakar, are you really sure you want to go there? It's, the planet is like not populated at all. He didn't say, oh, the Ilenium system. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because like to me, this is the base that we see at the end of Force Awakens. Because Kaz mentions that this is where the Resistance base is, and Leia is there.
I guess I just always assumed at the end of Force Awakens they were... I don't know where I thought they were.
Right. Where were you thinking they were?
I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah. So, not gonna lie, I have no idea what you were thinking, but to me...
I don't either.
Yeah, because Kaz says it point blank, and I'm like, yep, they're headed to... basically where everybody else was heading at the end of Force Awakens, right?
Yeah.
So
I guess I thought they were on Takodana.
Nope, because remember they leave Takodana after the big old fight.
Yeah, I guess I just thought they left where Maz's castle was and like drove on the other side of the planet or something and then landed again. Huh.
Yeah. So the Dakar is the planet where Finn and Poe regroup, and
interesting.
That's when Poe gives Finn his jacket, right? Like, oh no, it looks good on you.
Officially gives it to him.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is Dakar for our listeners and Kevin.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah. But the only reason that they're not heading there is because we don't ever see them there in the movies. So that would be the only reason that they're not heading there. But all the same, for them to make up this weird excuse of Niku not punching in all the numbers is...
I think it would be great. I'm going to roll into prediction time. I think it would be great if, while they're ambling through hyperspace, the events of The Last Jedi take place. So then when they come out of hyperspace... like, the Resistance is down to, just the Millennium Falcon. And then Season 2 needs to progress from there.
I guess. Wait, what do you mean the Resistance is down just the Millennium Falcon? Because what about?
Because in The Last Jedi, like, all of the Resistance done gets blowed up, and everyone that is left in the Resistance is basically on board the Millennium Falcon.
No. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, because they escape out the back of.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Now, I think Holdo, or no, I guess Leia says, like, we do have friends out there across the universe or whatever, but
right.
we're small pockets that need to band together. So
yeah,
I guess one of those is the Kaz Yeager band of Resistance fighters, and then the Millennium Falcon band of Resistance fighters. I just think it would be nice, like, they can, because, I mean, The Last Jedi, anyway, takes place, presumably is happening, like, right now, anyway, because it's, like, 2 days long. 3 days long, maybe. So 3 days lost in hyperspace, I can totally believe that.
That's true. Yeah, I could agree with that.
I think this would also open it up to have Christopher Sean playing Kazuto Xiono in episode 9, and it would be fucking awesome.
I agree that would be awesome. Not gonna happen.
I know it's not gonna happen, but it would be sweet.
Yeah. I got nothing for season 2 because I honestly, like I said, it doesn't sound like the writers know what's happening either. So.
We can get more into season 2 predictions later, but as far as predictions that we have made in the past, Von Reg, I don't really remember what we said about him, but I think we were basically like, once Pyre came along, he was useless, and he's probably going to go away. That happened. We talked about how Tam was definitely going to not side with Kaz and Yeager, and she was going to go with the First Order. Got that one right. We decided that Phasma was not going to be in like the last 2 or 3 episodes. Nailed that one. And we did have a comment on YouTube that basically said that they thought that Doza was probably a plant on Castellan by Thrawn. How do you feel about that? Does the timing work out here?
No, it's weird. It's a weird long. That's a long play.
I mean, I think it could be. That totally could be something that happened. I guess my assumption is that Doza has just been on the Colossus while it was on Castellan, but that isn't necessarily the point. Like, the Colossus could have been more traveling in previous times, because Doza does say like it hasn't flown in 20 years, but what was it doing before that? So this totally could be a holdover from the Empire. Maybe this is why Griff Halloran's there.
Does Doza seem that old though? Like, last we know of Thrawn, he got like jetted through light speed by some space whales, but that was still predating A New Hope.
Right.
So we're talking like 40 years prior. That's where the timing gets tricky for me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he was in the Empire. We know that much, or we assume that much, because he does have an Imperial uniform. And Pyre says something about when you were in the Empire, right? So, yes and no, the timing works out.
Yeah. I just don't know what he'd be doing on Castellan during the events of the original trilogy.
Fair enough. Right?
So it's a good thought. It's a good idea. It definitely, when you brought this comment up right before we started recording, it definitely made me think for a little bit. I would love these threads to connect. I would love some connective tissue between, especially this one doesn't have a lot of connective tissue between, say, like Rebels and Clone Wars as much as Rebels and Clone Wars.
Like to the original trilogy, you mean?
Or no, just to each other. Just like the shows to each other. Like, I expect It's maybe because it's the way Marvel has trained me. I expect TV shows to make lots of references to the movies. I don't expect the movies to make references to the TV shows. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But considering those two hierarchies, the TV shows across each other make a lot of references to one another. Right?
Yeah.
So
but this one hasn't yet.
Happened. Yeah, like not that I can think of.
Well, I mean, I guess it is a different time period.
Right, and we're much further down the line. Because, like Rebels and Clone Wars. Rebels was basically like hey, sorry, Clone Wars got canceled. Here's everything that we couldn't handle.
Here's some other stuff that we would have liked to have told you.
Right.
New characters.
Like, here's Ahsoka. Like, she's back. Here's Rex. Rex is back. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, characters literally pop back up from Clone Wars. Darth Maul. But here, it's definitely its own little contained pocket. Right?
So far.
So there are a lot of references to the movies that are happening, but not to the larger universe and not to like Thrawn era stuff.
Okay.
Per se. So that's why this comment kind of gave me pause, because I haven't in my headspace I haven't like started making longer range connections here. Even though the show at some points, we essentially get little bits here and there. Yeager at the Battle of Jakku is maybe the longest range one that we get besides the Imperial outfit.
Yeah. Now, I think the Battle of Jakku is supposed to take place shortly after Return of the Jedi, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which means that Yeager himself would be pretty old.
Yes.
We're talking like Luke Skywalker age here.
Yeah,
and
like he has to be in his 60s or so.
Right. Doza looks closer to that in age, so I could totally believe it.
Yeah,
Doza
if he was
a young officer
older
or something.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. He's got a lot of peppered gray in his mustache and hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
Yeager
so he
looks
waited a
old,
little bit
but
longer
not
to
that old.
start his family. So
Right. Yeah. So curious
to,
point, so we'll see.
Yeah, to you, YouTube commenter. I don't know if you want me to release your name, so I'll just call you that. But you gave us an idea. That's something to think about, and I guess maybe we'll see next season. And
yeah, we can only wait until season 2 and see
go
what
from
happens. But anyways, anything else to say about this episode before we start wrapping this up? Want to give it a thumbs up, thumbs down?
I'm good for a thumbs up, thumbs down, and a one-word review. My one-word review here, and I think you're going to disagree with me, but I called this one a cliffhanger because of the uncertainty of where things are going next. It's not a super cliffhanger. Like, we do have a conclusion kind of to the story, but it does intrigue me of what is to come in season 2.
Having said that, before you give a full rating, just while it's on my head, my one-word review jumping off of that then would be open, maybe.
Nice.
So I agree with you. It's not a cliffhanger per se. Things feel wrapped. I'm intrigued to see where it goes next, but it's not gnawing at me.
Yeah, open-ended is probably a better example of what I was trying to say, but I came up with cliffhanger, you came up with open. What do you give this one? A thumbs up, thumbs down? Let's do this. Let's stick to just this episode. I'd like to come back later and we'll talk about the season as a whole. But this one.
So regarding just this episode, it's not the best episode, it's not the worst episode. All that said, I still had fun with it. I'll still give it a thumbs up.
Cool.
It's still well done. It does what it needs to do. There are still a lot of open threads here and there. It could have done things a lot smoother. The scene of flushing out the First Order is kind of awkwardly placed in the context of how things are ramping up here. But once we get into it, it's a fine finale, right? It's fine. Yeah.
I was pleased with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it wasn't bad, and I have no major complaints about it. We nitpick things, but I had fun with it still.
That's kind of what we do. Yeah, this was fun. From start to finish, it kept my attention. I give this one thumbs up as well, and I like this. I think I would have liked both of these, No Escape Part 1, No Escape Part 2, better if it was just, The Recruit was a 45-minute episode. If No Escape was a 45-minute episode, we just end where we start, and you just give it a two-parter, and we run through it start to finish. I didn't need that 1 week break,
I agree.
But that would be my biggest complaint about these two things, or these two episodes. So other than that, I'm positive on it. Yeah. Probably if I gave it a percentage grade, it would be, somewhere in the B range, B minus maybe, overall it's pretty good. So whatever.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Definitely. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to next season to see what happens there. I will say, and this is just a personal note, this is the first season of anything Star Wars that I have watched weekly from when it came out to when it ended. I didn't do that with any of the Clone Wars. I didn't do that with any Rebels. So this is a first for me. So we made it from week 1 to week 20.
Yeah, I didn't watch Clone Wars, obviously, when it aired, but Rebels I did. Rebels I stuck with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. So,
I think it was like season 3 when I picked up on Rebels, probably.
So towards the end.
Went from there. So that was already like halfway over. And the Clone Wars, I was kind of up and down, back and forth with it. But that's neither here nor there. So Lorenzo and Kevin both end this one on a thumbs up. So if you agree or disagree with us and you want to let us know, you can shoot us an email at notthenerdspodcast@gmail.com.
I got you.
You can hit me up on Twitter at Not The Nerds. You can try to hit Lorenzo up on Facebook at Not The Nerds Podcast. We always like to throw a shout out to Lindsay. Thanks for the music. We'll have to get you on the show sometime, but shoot her an email over at strangefantasymusic@gmail.com. And thanks to Kevin Warren for doing our podcast artwork. You can hit him up on Twitter at They Call Me K-Dub. So, Lorenzo, unless you got anything else, I think we're going to jump out of here.
So this show is available on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever you're listening. Give us another comment, review, subscribe.
We've been talking about doing a season wrap-up, so that should be coming at you next week. But until then, I've been Kevin.
Lorenzo here.
These aren't the nerds you're looking for.
Bye-bye.